Okay, let's move on to part 2. Conflicts with the driver. The main cause of conflict between the driver and the dispatcher is interpersonal differences. Both parties have a common interest in making money, but otherwise your interests and visions of work processes may not coincide. It's a common stereotype that drivers often believe that dispatchers are lazy, that they just sit around all day doing nothing, drinking coffee, smoking, and watching videos on YouTube. After all, the driver doesn't see or know the details of dispatcher's life. He thinks that if the dispatcher took an inconvenient load for him, didn't give him enough time to rest, or sent him to an area he didn't want to go to, then the dispatcher did it on purpose. He had an opportunity to make the driver more comfortable, but he didn't do it because he's lazy or doesn't care about the driver. In most cases, this is certainly not true. The dispatcher is pressured by the owner of the company who wants to make high earnings, as well as the market conditions which may not provide an opportunity to pick up a more comfortable load at the right price. The best way to show the driver that you care about him and consider his opinion is, once again, quality communication. We looked at an example of a conversation with a driver when we talked about the 5 whys rule. That conversation is the whole essence of building a relationship with the driver. Just communicate with him. Explain why you made this or that decision, what your options were, and why you can't fully satisfy his wishes. Often, this is enough to avoid most of the conflicts. It's also a good idea to talk to the driver about topics unrelated to work from time to time. This helps build a deep, even friendly relationship. Moreover, the driver needs moral support because he's on the road around the clock. However, don't let the driver get on your neck. If he is a company driver and not the owner of the company, he should not have direct influence on the load selection decisions. You can consider his opinions and take his needs into account, but at the end of the day, the purpose of your cooperation is to make money. And if the driver is slacking off, if he's constantly late for no reason, he's negligent and he doesn't show respect to you, you should definitely notify the company owner, no matter how close your relationship may be. And finally, conflicts with the MC owner. Trucking company owner is the direct employer or customer of a dispatcher. Let's break down the key possible conflicts. First one, the customer refuses to pay the bill for the services provided. For any self-employed professional or business owner, non-payment of bills is a constant risk. An independent dispatcher usually charges the customer on a weekly post-payment basis. That is, first we provide the service, then we receive the commission. The first thing to do in this situation is to make sure that you have signed a contract, which spells out all the terms of service. Next, determine the reasons for the refusal to pay. If the reason makes sense, for instance, the customer is not satisfied with the service, perhaps you cannot find suitable loads for him, or your actions had a detrimental effect on his financial condition, then perhaps you should let the situation go and think about maintaining the relationship instead of trying to get a commission for one unsuccessful week. But if you have fulfilled all the agreed obligations and the client is refusing to pay or is simply ignoring you, you need to stand your ground with the understanding that you will no longer be working with this company in the future. The only really effective way is to keep calling, sending emails and messages. In order to get your hard-earned commission, you'll have to create such conditions that it will be easier for the client to pay those miserable $200 or $300 or $400 by means of annoying reminders. Unfortunately, it makes no sense to sue someone in the US for $200. I mean, the legal fees and the court fees will be more expensive than the amount of the claim. But that's exactly why we send invoices and get paid every week, to protect ourselves against the risk of losing a potentially significant amount due to refusal to pay. With that said, I'd like to add that customer non-payment is not a very common problem for dispatchers. At my company, we provide dispatching services to hundreds of customers every day, but we don't have a department or even a single individual dedicated to debt collection. Most of the time, the reason for payment refusal is customers' dissatisfaction with the service for a particular week, which is solved by the work of the quality control department and the customer service department, rather than lawyers and collectors. Next situation, carrier signed up for your services but doesn't accept any loads from you. Another very common problem. A dispatcher is spending a lot of time looking for loads and sending load offers, but the carrier is rejecting all of them, blaming low prices or a number of other reasons, and then books a load by himself, leaving the dispatcher without a hard-earned commission. This affects not only the financial situation, but also the morale of the dispatcher. After all, when the client loads himself, we take it as an indicator of the low quality of our skills. But this is not always the case. There's a certain category of carriers, and this is especially true for owner-operators. They work independently, they choose their routes not for profit maximization, but based on their own mood. They think to themselves, alright, I'll hire a dispatcher just in case. I only have to pay them if they book me a load, so I'm not really losing anything. Continuing to be patient with such carriers week after week and not getting anything in return is usually not worth it. It's a waste of precious time that could be used to make money. The solution options are as follows. Number 1, have a serious conversation with the carrier. Make it clear that you're trying very hard and you don't see the result and you want to get to the bottom of the real reason. Here's an example of such a conversation. Hi Steve, I've looked at my reports and I see that I only booked 3 loads for you in the past month. Last week we haven't even booked a single load together. I've been trying really hard to provide good quality service for you, but it doesn't look like it's working out so well for either of us. Perhaps you could give me some feedback and we can find a way to make our partnership more successful. Such a conversation will either improve things for the better, or you will make a mutual decision to say goodbye to each other. Either way, it's better than working for free. The second solution, set a minimum weekly fee. For example, $100 per week. If the amount of the commission is higher, it's paid as usual, but if it's less, the carrier still has to pay $100. If the conversation didn't help and the carrier is refusing to pay the minimum flat rate, it's a clear indicator that they don't really need your services at the moment, and it's best to give it up and devote the free time to finding other carriers to dispatch. Another common problem worth mentioning. Your customer or your employer is not satisfied with your work. So in this situation, we discard the option that the carrier doesn't really need your service and assume that they're simply not satisfied with the quality of your service. Usually the reason for customers' dissatisfaction is the following. The dispatcher doesn't meet the financial goals, so the carrier is not earning enough. Solution? Revise your routes, build a couple of new weekly plans, call brokers and try to determine the potential earnings for each plan. So basically just spend more time analyzing the market, going deeper into planning, building theories and testing them in practice. At the same time, be sure to call the owner of the company and notify him or her of your actions. For example, hello Tony, I know we haven't reached our income targets in the past couple of weeks. I'm taking this issue very seriously. I spent a lot of time analyzing the market and came up with several new route plans that I believe could be more profitable for us. Can we get on a quick call to discuss? Meeting financial goals won't always be possible. The company owner may have inflated expectations, or the market may have gone downhill while the customer's demands remain high. The only thing we can do as dispatchers is to make all possible efforts, squeeze the maximum out of the situation and keep testing new routes. All other customer dissatisfactions are solved by quality communication and providing quality customer service. I recommend calling all of your carriers weekly, discussing the results of the week, asking if they have any complaints or recommendations. The worst problem is the one the customer is silent about, so talk to them and they will love working with you. Let's summarize and make a quick list of key recommendations from this module. When dealing with any work conflict, break down the process into 3 steps: identifying the real problem, generating possible solutions, selecting and implementing the best solution. In order to get to the root of a conflict, use the 5 whys rule. Use tools to generate potential solutions: brainstorming, mind maps, and decision tree. When in doubt about a chosen solution, test it with the 5 key questions method. Ask yourself, will my solution satisfy all parties involved in the conflict? Can the solution be implemented in a reasonable amount of time? Is the solution cost-effective, reliable and realistic? Is the result comparable with the risks involved? And is the solution compatible with my professional ethics? If a broker cancels a shipment at the last minute or provides incorrect information about the load, be sure to request compensation. To avoid trouble with lumper fees, talk to your broker about it when booking your load. If you made a mistake that resulted in a negative consequence, take the blame, offer a sincere apology and do everything possible to resolve it. The key to working successfully with a driver is quality communication, but don't let the driver get on your neck. Sometimes it's worth giving up on a customer if he has no real need in your services. And finally, if you can't meet your carrier's financial goals, take more time to analyze the market and start testing new routes.